Hi everyone. Timing. Welcome to the third and final breakout session of the day. Thank you for choosing this one. Those who I recognise, I'll just say the same thing. If you do want to see any of the other sessions, just remember they are being streamed, so you haven't been missed out. Come on in, it's fine. Brief introduction from me to say just that, and then afterwards we're obviously back in the main room. All that's left to say is welcome Becky, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Oh, it's such an honour to have an opportunity to be here today and to speak to you all. And I want to say a massive thank you to people like Rachel, who have been a great instigator in getting us to sign the Armed Forces Covenant. And so today we're promoting being part of that Armed Forces Covenant. And it's a great honour. We've loved working alongside the military. So thank you for that. So I wanted to... I'm going to be talking about some difficult subjects. So I just wanted to start by kind of saying I'm not going to be diving in depth. I've been asked to speak about some of the new aspects of suicide prevention, some of the new processes that have been brought out. So I want to kind of update some of you that are already working in this field. And then I'm going to talk about developing resilience. So my plan is to start talking about suicide, and then I'm going to move on to talking about developing resilience. And we're going to do all of that in half an hour. Not bad, eh? That's the plan. That's the plan. Some of you I've already spoken to this morning, so I'm really sorry if you have a tiny bit of a repeat here. So I'm Becky Wright, and my business is New Leaf Workplace Wellbeing. So hopefully you'll have come downstairs and seen our very bright stand. So I wanted to say really that every year more people die as a result of suicide than anything else. So just think about that for a moment. So worldwide, what we know is that suicide creates more deaths than any other illness or condition, or indeed war. However, do you think it's the most funded? No. And it's kind of interesting, isn't it, when you start to think like that? What is going on? What's happening here? So 1 in every 100 deaths is suicide related. And because I'm going to be talking about something a little bit difficult, I just want to remind folk in here to just take care of yourself while you're listening. If you want to step out, no one's going to judge you, okay? Just feel free to stand up and step out. That feels important to mention that. In the military, the rates of suicide are not high, I'm very pleased to say. So I got the figures for you because I thought some of you might be interested. So in the armed forces, it says that suicide remains still a very rare event. And it says that on average, less than 2 per month. But that's nothing to be complacent about. To me, that's too many. But it's about 2 a month. And every one of us in this room will know someone who has taken their own life. And that might be someone very close to you. So what I often think when I come to a talk like this is part of us sitting here is we're repairing something for that person. So hold them in mind, have them present, and you're here and hopefully you will prevent a suicide in the future. So that's a very positive thing to do. So I'm going to talk about this new guidance. So some of you will have heard of the World Health Organization. So they cover all aspects of health globally. A couple of months ago, they decided to release some new guidance. And the plan is that they want everyone to start to follow this new guidance, no matter what profession that you are in. And it's based on these 4 aspects. Limiting access to the means of suicide. I'm going to talk a bit about that in a minute. Interacting with the media. So they're trying to encourage responsible reporting via the media. And a lot of that work at the moment is being done with the Samaritans. So if any of you are putting out any messages or social media around rates of suicide, it's always useful to look at the Samaritans guidance because they've literally written it to kind of help you work through it. We're going to look at the socio-emotional life skills. So that's very much about what are we going to do about the suicide rates in young people and actually how can we work to prevent that more. And they're going to look at early identifications. That's really about how do we assess people, how do we pick people up in the system to make sure that we don't miss out on that vulnerability. Because I don't know about you, but I'm very good at masking how I am. I've become brilliant at it. You know, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, big smile. And I think we're all very good at that. But ask me 3 or 4 times and you might get a real answer. So often we just have to think about how we identify and how we look out for those signs. So I'm just going to talk about each of those few there. So limiting access. So what we know is that pesticides are estimated to account for 1/5 of suicides globally.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, pesticides. Pesticides account for 1/5 of all suicides globally. So if we think about, I mean, I live in the middle of Somerset, I live in the middle of farming community. Farmers have access to pesticides. They also have access to chemicals and chemical cupboards. They also have access to firearms. So we're looking at our access to lethal means, of which pesticides are one of those lethal means. So they're trying to think, how can we limit these accesses? Now, as you'll appreciate, that's a very difficult thing to do when people have a license to carry those arms in many ways, especially in the farming community. They won't disclose their mental ill health because their fear is that their firearms license will be taken away, or their access to the chemicals that they use in their dairy farm will be removed, and therefore their livelihoods will be removed. So this isn't something that can just be implemented. We're talking about a big global collaboration in order to start to think about how do we limit these means. Thinking about jump sites, you might have noticed on bridges the little signs up now saying about if you're feeling suicidal, you can call the Samaritans. But they're looking at how can we protect jump sites better so that they don't become a beacon when people are particularly unwell. So jump sites, lethal means, access to those lethal means, those are the things that are starting to be looked at under limiting access. They're also looking, so under the next one, interacting with the media, one of the biggest problems is that if somebody famous takes their own life, we have something called imitation suicide, which often happens. So if you think about a famous person that you've heard of who may have taken their own life, very often that triggers other people to do the same. Now here's your hero. I'm just thinking about the guy from The Prodigy, who Keith Flint. Thank you. We only saw him a few weeks before he took his own life. But when that information came out, I remember how much I listened to that and thought, "Oh my goodness, you know, that was someone that I saw on stage just a few weeks ago."
A very senior Marine officer's just committed suicide.
Right. So you think about the ripple effect of that. Absolutely awful. So we have to be aware of this ripple, which is why we need to be responsible for how we report on these events. So working with the media, especially when it involves, like the gentleman here mentioned, you know, a very high profile case, we need to think about how that is disseminated so that it doesn't trigger further suicide. This is a tricky one, the third one. This is socio-emotional skills in adolescence. I don't personally work with young people, but my understanding is they're trying to look at in schools how can we develop more social skills for people so that they feel more able to access help. Young people have the most potent thing, which is an emotional intelligence. They have the ability to talk about how they feel to each other. Adults, we're not brilliant at that. Young people are actually very good at it. They're our mental health first aiders of the future, our young people, because they have that emotional sensitivity and that emotional ability to tune in, which I don't think you can train someone in. I think we just develop it as we get older. So they're looking at how do they assess young people, especially young people that are at greater risk. And if any of you have had young people trying to access mental health services, you'll know just how difficult that is. I can see a few people nodding there. So it's very difficult. We're very short of staff in the NHS, and they aren't getting the best service they could have. And I think everybody would kind of admit that. The final bit is about early identification. What they're looking at there is actually what are they doing within health systems to help stop people fall through the net. And a lot of the conversations I've had with some of you on the stand has been people that fall through the net. Groups of people that are not accessing services because either they don't believe they're unwell or they've tried and they've got nowhere, so they've just given up. So that's what they're trying to look at, is how can we make things more accessible for people. So this week, the Samaritans have released a new app for veterans. So the front says suicide prevention and peer support in the armed forces. So I've brought a whole load of these for you guys to take away today. So this is a new resource. The idea is that you would encourage someone to just scan it, to have it on their phone. When you open it up, and I'm sorry I couldn't do a particularly good screenshot of this, it divides into different sections. So it goes through things like the crisis and emergency support services. It goes through, you know, if you're not sleeping well, here's some videos you can watch to help you with sleep. It goes through things like some of those very practical supports in the community, family support and so on. I have to say, I'm not a fan of apps, but I thought this was very well done. I couldn't fault it. So download it, have a look at it yourself, and if you think it's good, I would encourage people to have it on their phone. And it kind of asks you how you are, which is kind of nice, you know. How are you? Oh, I'm fine today, so I press fine, and then I get a few kind of well-being tips for the day. It's kind of, that's quite good. So I think it's a goodie and well worth perhaps looking at for within your own organisations. So desktop, tablet, phone, you can download it onto all of those. What I'm going to teach you is a model that we teach on the mental health first aid 2-day course. I'm going to test Rachel's knowledge here. Current plan, C for current plan. Can you remember what current plan was? No. See, she really paid attention when she came on that course. Can you remember? No. Well, I'm obviously a crap teacher, I must say. 2 people that I pick on. I'll open it to the wider audience anyway. So when we look at this is an acronym which we teach people, and it's so simple, I thought it would be really helpful to do it here with you guys. So when someone is suicidal and they approach us, something in us often shuts down and all our intelligence sort of goes out the window and we become almost frozen quite often. We think, I'm just so shocked that they've said that often we can't find the words to say anything. So this is a quick way of remembering what to say. You always ask them about their current plan. Now that might not sit comfortably with some of you, but you say to them, can you tell me, do you have a current plan around suicide? And the training is very direct. It's not about mincing your words. If you feel you want to say, I'm sorry to have to ask you, but still ask that as a direct question. All the research says that asking about suicide, talking about suicide, will not make someone more suicidal. And you just need to remember that. So you ask the question, do you have a current plan? So clock what they say. Next question, is there any other prior behaviour? Have they had suicidal thoughts before? Have they got family members who've just taken their own life? But we want to know if they've engaged in any self-harm or what's that behaviour. So we're just asking them a bit about their behaviour. And the third one is resources. That is a double-edged question. Do they have the resources to carry this out? That's one part of it. But also, do they have support resources around them? Have they got family? Have they got friends that are looking out for them? Are they already accessing support? Would they like us to ring someone that they know of? So CPR, okay? Okay, so what were those 3 letters? And what was the C? Nice. And what about the P? You're a beautiful audience. What's the R? You're putting these 2 to shame. Resources. Yeah. Yeah, so what we're looking at there, do they have the resources to take their own life? So just thinking about where we live, in the middle of, fields, I would be thinking through, have they got the keys to their gun cupboard? Yeah, do they have guns? I'd be thinking through what resources does that person have. Sometimes they'll say to you, look, I'm not suicidal, but I've been driving around with a rope in the back of my car for weeks now. I'd just like to know it's there. That's useful to know that someone has that in their car.
For us who live in the, well, not me personally, but live in the block.
Yeah.
If someone who lives on the top floor comes and says, I feel like I'm going to kill myself, and their resource is jumping out the window,
Yeah.
how do you take that away?
Okay. So what I would do in that situation, I want you to just think through those 3. So you've just said what their current plan is. What sort of questions could you ask them, do you think?
Why do you want to do that?
Okay, now the moment you get into your whys, you're entering a whole world there, and this is a crisis situation. So I personally wouldn't go down the why route, because then you're saying, well, why would you want to take your own life? Think about other people. Think about, they will have thought through all of that. So go down the very practical route, which is there anyone that we could call, maybe who could support you right now? Are you in touch with the crisis team? Do you mind me asking? Yeah, so I would because if you get into why, you get into a whole world, which isn't helpful in that moment. Yes, I want you to be very direct and very clear, because your sense of your own safety when you're present with someone who is feeling unsafe can have quite a potent effect on them. It can make them feel safer.
So on the back of that question,
Yeah.
when you're dealing with somebody in this crisis situation, to what extent do you empower them to be in charge of their own destiny, or to what extent, certainly in the military, do you start taking a degree of charge and saying, right, I'm taking you off the top floor, you're going to come and sleep in the guard room tonight because of your own benefit? Do you see my point? The question
I do.
is, who's in charge at that point?
Okay, so I can talk from a civilian perspective. So, for example, I wouldn't try and remove a knife off someone or a firearm off someone. I would call the police. So if it was in a situation where their own safety was at risk, I would look to contact those emergency services to intervene. But I would stay with them until those services arrived. So we can talk to someone, can't we? And one of the most powerful things you can do, and you might be surprised at this, is when someone's in a very dark place, if you said to them, could you help me with something? Something happens in our head when we turn something around. And suddenly you're asking them to help you. Well, what do you want to help with? I was just wondering the other day. So distract. Get them to help you with something. Something you've just been wondering about. Yeah? Turn it around very quickly. And often that will pull them away from that dangerous place. So really simple technique, but works really well. Have I answered your question, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't call the civilian police in a military context, but we
Okay.
would call the guard commander or something like that. I was just
Right.
trying to determine, do we sort of take ownership of their thinking and their actions, or do we let them?
So my understanding is you guys would put someone to sort of lock them up for their own safety for a period of time if they were particularly vulnerable.
Fantastic, but you would do
Yeah,
that if
okay. So you'd probably at that point call in the crisis team. So you would have your equivalent of like a crisis intervention team, and they would be called in to assess that person and their risk to themselves or others. Yeah, so that's my understanding of how it works within your system, but it could be slightly different.
So somebody in a military organisation might have a far quicker response service-wise than a normal civilian. So I work with young people with mental health.
Okay,
Hold the crisis team can be quite difficult at
it can be very challenging.
It sounds like they've almost got their own teams.
They have.
Not better, that's not fair. Quicker response.
You'll have a very different response, yes. Yeah. And yeah, don't get me on that one. because you and I could have a very interesting conversation. But yes, the crisis team can be difficult to get hold of, and they are overwhelmed with work. So within the military, you do have a very clear defined system, which seems to work really well. What I would say is maybe what you could do more of is some of that aftercare when they move on from being locked up for that brief period. Yeah, is that okay? Okay, so CPR, and you're going to remember that today, aren't you? And that will make me very happy. Okay, 10 minutes on resilience. I've just been nodded to. So, you guys have got some amazing resilience training, and it's come a long way. I'm going to get Alex to impersonate what it used to be like. Could you just do me a quick?
So I'm a big fan of YouTube, guys, and I love all the old like training kind of videos, and you can just, I tapped in, it's always a big mistake, I'm on my own, it's a Saturday night, I tap into YouTube, and it was, there was one called Shoot to Kill. If you tap in Shoot to Kill, World War II, up comes this wonderful training video, and it really is, so it's like, here's the Sergeant Major. The Sergeant Major is armed with a Thompson 45 submachine gun. Well done, Sergeant Major. Off we go. And it is really like that. And you think, no, they didn't reach that. It's like, today, chaps, we're going to look at how to use concentrated rifle fire to bring down a Stuka. Yeah, sure. Luckily for us, although that obviously had its place, but resilience today has come a long way. And what we're hoping is what Becky's been talking about. We'll show you some alternative ways to show resilience.
That's the plan.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's very good, Alex.
Thank
you. Good. I don't know why he's not speaking to me. So music. Probably why am I showing you this image? If you're into your power ballads, what am I showing you? Eye of the Tiger. Eye of the Tiger. Now, I'm not allowed to play music because we're being YouTube, but we did have a couple of tracks lined up which we thought would be our top key power ballads. But anything that we play can take us back to a place, and that place can take us to a stronger place in ourselves. So music to me is one of my top ones. So what I've done is I've looked at all of the resilience that the military currently deliver. You'll be very proud of me. That took me 4 days, okay? I've condensed it down, and so these are your top ones, okay? These are your top tips for resilience, and I've typed them out on a handout which you can have on your way out. So we need to find the ability to jump over trouble and recover easily. So there's such a lot of resources now about how can we recover, how can we stay well, how can we make ourselves feel stronger. We need to develop that where there's a will, there's a way attitude. And if you can do that, then that will help you deal with adversity. We need to see problems as opportunities. I've got my mother in my head going, yes, that's when I taught you. But as parents, we can often pass that on, can't we? We've got to look at things as an opportunity. We've got to look at our ability to see windows as opportunities, but also we've got to expand our comfort zone. Because if we live in a tiny world, we need to expand ourselves so that our comfort zone, we can deal with the bigger picture. We need to develop our ability to recover from traumatic. We need to get help, go around the stands, pick up leaflets, have conversations, get your toolkit of what you can use. And we have to have faith. We also need to be hopeful ourselves, because like if you and I spoke about CAM's mental health services, we wouldn't be hopeful, but we need to be hopeful because people will feed off your hopefulness as well. I thought this guy was very interesting. Anyone want to know who it is, even though you're sitting at the back? Why have I got him up here?
He used to live about 2 miles up.
He did live about 2 miles. And he said this beautiful quote. So T. Lawrence, dream your dreams with open eyes and make them come true. So part of this around resilience is us learning to come alongside our emotional state. Now in the military, you're taught to manage it, control it, put it there. What I want to show you is how to come alongside it, how to develop emotional resilience so that you literally learn, oh my goodness, there's my anger coming up. Oh my goodness, there's my fear coming up. So rather than learning to push it away, you learn how to communicate with it. you learn how to invite it in for tea. That's how I think about it. I'm going to hang out with it for a short while and then I'm going to move on. So some of the training we do in New Leaf, and we do it as part of our mental health first aid training, is we teach our audience how to come alongside those feelings, how to process them and work with them so that we're not pushing them away. Otherwise, they jump back, don't they? Anything you push away, at some point, you have a few pints, back it comes with a vengeance. So that's a certain technique. And I thought I would finish, as I've just been shown my last few minute poster, on this poster, which belongs to Alex actually, because this was you.
I'm the guy with the beard in the middle, by the way.
Yeah. And we were talking about talking in the Sherman room, weren't we?
Yeah.
And you said there was something very significant about being in the Sherman tank room.
So I'm sure, as many of you guys will know, the Sherman was one of the most prolific tanks of World War II, and it's rather appropriate simply because we at New Leaf would like to make mental resilience and mental well-being just as prolific, so in your own workplace.
So that's our plan. So thank you so much, guys, for listening to me today. I'm going to hang out for a little bit. I've got lots of leaflets to give you on the way out, which my colleague at the back said that she would hand out for me. Any questions, please feel free, because I think we're the last speaker, aren't we? Yeah. So anything you want to ask, or if you need to go, go. Thank you very much. Thank you.